it's harder for your stomach to produce enough digestive juices to get that stuff broken down and churned and lubricated and pushed through. So it's chewing, it's hydration, it's how much fiber you're getting in your diet. All of those things are really keys to helping promote better elimination.
What I love about the chamomile, I love that it does, kind of talking about the nervous system, is it really helps transfer your body from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic. And so that's going from fight or flight to rest and digest. And I would say most of us on a regular basis tend to naturally be in fight or flight, unless you're on top of it with meditation or deep breathing or grounding or removing yourself from stimulation. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Wellness for Life. I'm your host, Niki Wolf, and today we are going to continue diving into the LifeSeasons formulations dedicated to the category in gut health. So we'll pull apart a few of our top performing gut health formulas. But today I want to introduce our incredible, lovely guest that if you have this lady in your life, you are considered such a lucky person. Her knowledge, her empathy, her kindness, her dedication to supporting others, helping people feel their best, and just doing the right thing. I so appreciate you. I'm so grateful to have you in my life. Robin Rogosin, we'll get into your intro, but thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Niki, you glitched for a second there. Hey, Niki, thanks for the nice introduction.
Everybody that knows you knows that you are a testimony of all those things. And, those are, I guess, more of your characteristics, but you have such a knowledge, a passion, and a dedication in the health field, specifically in herbalism. But right now you serve as the Vice President of Practitioner Sales for Health Concerns, which is a company underneath LifeSeasons. And, you've been in this health industry for a long time. You have experience in some incredible roles within this industry. I'd love to just share that a little bit with the listeners of where you've been and really how you got here.
When I was a kid, I have really cool parents. And when I was a kid, my mom subscribed to a health magazine that was one of those, early magazines that said, if you take these nutrients, you might improve your health in these ways. And since I was a newborn, I've had asthma. So I was reading in those magazines when I was about 10 years old. And they had advertisements in the back of different kinds of nutrients that you could mail order at the time in the olden days. So I would ride my bike to the bank and go into my savings account and get a money order and mail order vitamins because I had asthma. And I felt like, the doctors would give me allergy shots, but I felt like they didn't really know how to fix it. It wasn't like the fix. It was just the maybe make it a little bit better. So I started taking, we had a mailman that was great who used to whistle so loud that I could hear him coming and I could snatch the packages before anybody knew. And I did that for probably 2 years before anybody knew that I was doing that, before I started shopping in a health food store for my supplements. And I was taking things like manganese and vitamin B6 and magnesium and vitamin C. And it was helping a little bit, but, it's been an adventure trying to figure out all the things I could do for my health. And when I came back home from college, I started working in a health food store. And I worked in that health food store for 7 years and then oversaw a chain of health food stores, and then it just grew. And at the end of my health food store experience, I was overseeing the purchasing for supplements and body care for 59 stores, a region of Whole Foods. So, and about 8 years ago, I came to work for LifeSeasons and then Health Concerns. And it's been amazing. I really love my job. It helps me learn about the things that I love to learn about. And one of the things that I always like to talk about when I talk about herbs is how different they are from drugs, how different they are from medication. You know, for one thing, herbs have been used for thousands of years by millions of people, and we have written documentation about how herbs were prepared and what they treated, written documentation for thousands of years. So with such a track record, we really know a lot about what herbs do. And despite the fact that, you hear herbs being dismissed as a real therapy, there is a huge amount of knowledge and history, and just because they can't be patented and the scientific community doesn't, research them all the time, doesn't mean that they don't have amazing value, because they really do. And besides the history, herbs, medications have one constituent. They're usually one chemical. Herbs have thousands of constituents, just like food. There's carotenoids and there's polyphenols and there's all kinds of different things in plant materials. So an herb may be known for being good at one thing, like turmeric, for example. People these days know turmeric is helpful for modulating inflammation, but turmeric does so many other things. I mean, it has cardiovascular health benefits, it helps mood, it helps cognition. There's a lot of different things that it's beneficial for. So we might think of like joint health and inflammation as an effect, and those other things as side effects, but they're really side benefits.
Absolutely. I love kind of pulling that apart. And I know with my experience, I started out in Whole Foods as well. And just working as a sales rep in all these health food stores, one of the common things that people would ask is like, or they would bring up an ingredient and I would show them where it was. And they're like, wait, I thought like fenugreek, for example, it's commonly in the women's section, but it's also in the men's section. They're like, wait, that doesn't make sense. That's the beauty of herbs is they have so many benefits and support various organs and systems of the body. So it is incredibly powerful. And unfortunately, clinical studies are incredibly expensive. They're lengthy. There is absolute they're phenomenal if you can get clinical studies behind your ingredients, behind your products, which we have done with LifeSeasons, but it takes a lot to do that. And that's just to validate what it already does. But it's funny. I don't know if I've told you this, Robin. So when you were still at Whole Foods, I worked at Whole Foods. I started at Huntington Beach, Del Mar. Yes. And I remember there was one morning that it kind of, the buzz went around, okay, Robin's coming in today. She's, and it was like everybody was just like on their heels and like tidying things up, and not even like out of a fear. It was just like you were so well respected with your position. We know the knowledge that you had. I mean, maybe we didn't even know a glimpse to the knowledge and experience you had. But I just remember like, okay, Robin Rogosin, like it was a name to be known in Whole Foods. And it just says a lot too, the fact that you oversaw all these products that decided, okay, we're going to allow this in the store. We're not going to allow this in the store. And out of all those products, you decided to go with LifeSeasons. So it just was very validating to know that I really chose a good company that has good standards, values, ingredients, because just, I can't even imagine the hundreds of thousands of products that have, come your way, and you can really get a good perspective of what's good and what's not.
That was a fun time for sure. And I did learn a lot, just learning through doing and, studying on the side.
I know in some of the episodes we've kind of pulled apart. I mean, we've really tapped into the importance of digestion. I think at this point, listeners know, we need to be supporting our gut health, the connection between the brain and the gut, that there's so many different issues going on. But I'd really love to spend today discussing some of our formulas really with your expertise in the herbal perspective. And so I'd love to start with Regulari-T, which is actually one of my favorite formulas. It's our bowel support formula. I'll give my little spiel, but I'd really love to hear kind of your perspective of the herbs, because I don't have the history and the education certifications you do on herbalism, but I love this formula because it really works in 3 ways. And maybe you can tell me it works in more, but from my understanding, constipation or bowel issues really happen of 3 main issues of, a lack of bulkness, lack of the motility. So maybe peristalsis, stuff isn't just moving along, and then the lack of the lubrication. And what's so fantastic about this formula is it really addresses all 3 of those issues without any stimulating laxative. So, stimulating laxative, Cascara sagrada, senna, there's a time and a place, but you don't really want to be taking that on a regular basis. From my understanding, your body loses its ability to produce stools on its own when you're taking that consistently. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's from everything I understand. But I'd love to hear kind of like your overarching understanding perspective on regularity.
Bowel issues are so common, and constipation is so common. And maybe because it's taboo, I know you've covered this. Mm-hmm. You've talked about how it's taboo to talk about them, to talk about not only how frequently you have bowel movements, but what they're like. And doctors, for some reason, which I will never understand, never ask people how many times they have bowel movements a week. And I feel like it's such a key part of understanding somebody's intrinsic health, to understand how they're processing the food that nourishes us. And I think most people don't really understand that it's the medical establishment says you should have bowel movements at least once a day, and it's normal if you have bowel movements 3 times a week. And all I do when I think about 3 times a week is imagine how many meals are in my digestive tract. And, it's to me, it's not normal, and it's not.
And bowel support and pooping is excreting waste. Stuff that our body can't absorb, getting that out of our system. And this Definitely. Is no judgment. I've had my fair share of struggles with constipation and there are a lot of root problems or causes. But it's like, that's something that we deeply need to eliminate out of our system.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So we know the mechanics, we talk about peristalsis. And we talk about, peristalsis is how things get through this 30-foot long tube that goes through our body. So, and it's a contraction of muscles. So muscles contract as, pushing things along as they go. And gravity helps, so if you're upright and not laying in bed all day, that definitely helps. And some of the other things that help are chewing, making sure that you're chewing really well, that you're chewing every mouthful, that you're not just gulping down your food. Because when you gulp down your food, it just makes it harder for your digestive tract to work. It's harder for your stomach to produce enough digestive juices to get that stuff broken down and churned and lubricated and pushed through. So it's chewing, it's hydration, it's how much fiber you're getting in your diet. All of those things are really keys to helping promote better elimination. And it's also what you're eating. It's getting plenty of fruits and vegetables, not eating refined food and refined grains, drinking plenty of water, avoiding sugar, because sugar helps feed and fuel the pathogenic bacteria. Yeah, regularity starts with an herb called turkey rhubarb. And turkey rhubarb helps promote bowel movements, but it has benefits over those harsh laxatives that you mentioned, the senna and the Cascara sagrada.
Well, and I know this one is particularly good for the motility. I also know it's in our menopause formula, because that is a huge side effect or symptom of menopause. Is it's not just the hot flashes and night sweats and mood swings, it's constipation. And so we're putting the turkey rhubarb in there to help kind of with that motility.
Right, exactly. And what I was trying to say is that the higher level of tannins that are in the turkey rhubarb help prevent the bowel from becoming lax, loosening up. It helps astringe the tissues to keep them tight and firm so that they can be productive, so that the peristalsis works and things can continue to move through. The next ingredient in the formula is butternut bark, not to be confused with butternut squash, which is a mild laxative, and it's also considered by herbalists as stomachic, which just means it's good for digestion. It's helpful in small doses. It doesn't cause a lot of cramping like other laxative herbs. It's very mild. And that's part of the key of this formula, is to not cause you to run to the bathroom, but give you relief in a very mild way. And then there are herbs like aloe vera, which is healing. The tissue that lines our digestive tract is the same kind of epithelial tissue that lines our skin. So just like aloe is helpful for healing skin ailments and burning and, little scrapes and cuts and things, it's very helpful for healing the digestive tract internally because the tissues are so similar. And it has healing properties, and they've been actually well established by research. And we have psyllium seed husks to provide some fiber.
There's horseradish, barberry, and fennel.
Yeah,
and I want to kind of pull out psyllium for a little bit because I feel like it could go a few different ways. It could be controversial, it could not be. Some people are like a little bit maybe hesitant with it. It's interesting from just my education experience, but also personal experience. I remember years ago, I had some really bad digestive health issues, and I went to a doctor, didn't ask my diet, didn't ask anything, didn't ask how often. Well, maybe he did ask at that point how often I was going, because that was the main subject. And he told me, I want you to get on psyllium. As soon as he said that, I kind of checked out. Now, hear me out, because psyllium's incredible and it's very powerful. But at that time, I was raw vegan. All I was eating was like tons of insoluble fiber, lots of soluble fiber. And so, the insolubles kind of bulks the stools. The soluble helps kind of like make it like more moist and get things going down. I was already consuming more than the norm. I mean, I could easily have a kale salad, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Insoluble fiber was never an issue for me. And so I would say most people, that's not the case. It's usually they very much lack fiber, especially with the insoluble fiber. I think a lot of people, if they are consuming fiber, it comes from a lot of fruits. And so you're generally, yes, you're getting a mix, but you're getting a lot of that soluble. And so psyllium is incredibly beneficial for most individuals because they're probably not consuming a lot of that in their diet. At least if you're having constipation concerns, that is a kind of, to your point of hydration, lack of fiber, psyllium is incredibly beneficial. If you're having like little nugget poops or just not enough is coming out, psyllium is going to help bulk that stool. So to help grab on and eliminate that waste.
Yeah, definitely. And I know, Niki, that you're interested in Ayurveda. And, one of the things to keep aware of if you're using psyllium in addition to a formula like Regulari-T is that psyllium as an herb has a cold, it's cold energetically. So if you use a lot of psyllium, it's really good to use it with warm tea or to take warming herbs with it like ginger and cinnamon and mix in some ginger and cinnamon with your psyllium drink and even drink it warm. Drink it with warm water instead of cold water because you will get better benefit and it's so much better for your digestive tract and to promote healing of digestion because when you adding coldness to your digestive tract, and this even goes for people who maybe are chewing on ice all day and drinking cold drinks all day, it's hard for your digestive tract to work with that. So it's really good to drink room temperature drinks, warm broth, put some psyllium and mix it with those warming herbs. And one of the other warming herbs is horseradish. Horseradish that's in Regulari-T. And horseradish is an awesome herb to help stimulate those digestive juices I mentioned. And it's also a mild laxative on its own. But because it can be a little irritating, especially in really large quantities, it shouldn't be used for people who have ulcers or infections. It's really good in the quantities that are in this formula because they're so well balanced. But if you're going to grate up a bunch of horseradish and, use it as a laxative remedy, you may find you feeling a little irritation because it's stimulating and it can be a little bit harsh, as most people know because they've tasted it.
Absolutely.
And then barberry is a really great herb that helps flow bile in the body. And bile flow from the liver and gallbladder is really a key to good elimination and good detoxification. So it helps with digestion and elimination. And it also can help support the microbiome so that it can fight off pathogens more effectively because it has kind of an anti-infective property.
Yeah, I think it's, when we look at formulations, this is one thing I love about LifeSeasons is how holistic it looks at the body of like, what do we need to support this condition? Because sometimes, they could just do fiber in some sort of stimulating laxative, but I love the addition of the barberry because we have to look big picture. What else is going on? Are you producing enough bile that can help break down those fats? Maybe that's what's holding you up. And so really looking at the body, including all these ingredients to kind of fill the gaps of what could be going on. So I'm glad we pulled that ingredient. And then the last one that you were getting to is fennel seed. And fennel seed, I believe, is also I think it's in a handful of our formulas, but it's in IB Soothe-R. What is fennel designed or supportive for?
I think if you've ever eaten in an Indian restaurant and you see a little bowl of fennel by the where you pay at the reception stand, one of the reasons why they do that in traditional Indian cooking and in Ayurvedic culture is because it can be antispasmodic. It can be, I hate to use those anti-words, it can help relieve spasms in the digestive tract. And it's considered a carminative, which means it helps with gas and bloating. So fennel is excellent for that. It contains essential oils. When you chew fennel seeds, you get, it's almost breath freshening. It's quite nice. And that's the reason why they use it is because it promotes digestion. It helps with bloating and gas. It relieves spasms that may be caused by, taking lots of, senna and cascara and other harsh laxatives. So it's especially good. Yeah, it's especially good for that.
One question that a lot of people ask, kind of my whole experience with LifeSeasons, is this something that we can take regularly? And I have my opinion, but I'd love to hear what you have to say about that.
I think if someone was taking it regularly, they're not paying enough attention to what they're doing that's causing the problem to begin with. I don't think it's intended to be taken regularly. It's safe. It's mild, and those are the benefits of using it on an ongoing basis. But I definitely think it begs questions about, are you getting enough fruits and vegetables? Are you only drinking cold water and never warm? Are you stressed all the time? Are you exercising at all? It would make me ask all of those questions if I was talking to someone as a consultant, it would.
I love that. And I think that's the kind of epitome of LifeSeasons is like and I hopefully could speak as a whole, like we believe holistic approaches come from diet, lifestyle, supplementation, that supplements aren't going to cure everything, but it's a part of the healing process. And so let's make sure we're checking the boxes of all the other things. I think it's like a sleep formula, especially recipes that we have. These products are safe, but they're effective. But if we are having to lean on this as an everyday thing, we need to start being a little bit more critical thinkers and ask, all right, what's going on? What's the root cause? What might be making this link? So I think Regulari-T is a phenomenal formula. If you're in a certain season where you're struggling with constipation or even diarrhea, to your point of kind of side tangent, psyllium being that cooling effect, that's going to be really good for somebody who's generally really hot and flushing out and having this diuretic effect.
Mm-hmm.
The psyllium is going to kind of balance that out. But if you're in a season, especially, I know I just keep saying sleep, that you need this for a few days to kind of help get you back on track, absolutely safe. Because that's a question I get all the time. But let's start asking ourselves, if we're depending on something like this, all right, what's going on? You listed a number of things. Are we drinking liquids 30 minutes before a meal, 30 minutes after a meal? Are we moving enough? Are we sweating enough? What do our toxins look like? One big thing that I think we've explored in this whole gut health series is there's no amount of food and supplements you can really do or take that's going to significantly move the needle if your nervous system is dysregulated. We got to regulate our nervous system. If you're trying to take all these supplements, but you're sleeping poorly, you have living a very stressful life, and you're not prioritizing adjusting things in your life. And I see it so many times that, no, this is what I have to do. And you kind of have to pick, and you have to figure out the priorities and make those changes. But short answer, it's safe, it's effective. But if you're needing to take it on a daily basis, let's get to the root of what's going on.
Yeah. Just ask yourself, am I chewing my food? Am I, all the things.
Which Robin's called me out, I think one or twice, that is like my biggest weakness is I shovel food, and I have digestive issues, or I've had in the past. And you mentioned too, it's like the more we chew the food, the more surface area we have on this food, so that all these enzymes now have so many more places to start attacking the food. So there's absolutely a ton of benefits. I've read that with every bite, you should chew, I think, 50 times, which is
I don't think you can chew 50 times. I've heard 30 times. 30 times is a lot. Even just chewing 20 times or 15 times, try to liquefy the food in your mouth as much as you can, as much as is comfortable, But that's what our teeth are for. That's what our mouth is for. Our mouth is the beginning of our digestive tract. And I'm so glad that you kind of dug into that a little bit, because I think everybody's rushed. All I think about when I'm concerned about people's digestion is they're eating, pancakes for breakfast and a candy bar for lunch and, pasta and French bread for dinner. And oh my gosh, it's like there's just not enough good stuff in there to digest. So no wonder people are constipated. So all of the things that we've talked about make a big difference. And we're
eating on the go. We're eating in stressful environments. And I know there's only, you have certain circumstances. If there's toddlers running around, you got to feed them, but you also got to eat. Like, it's not always going to be like peace and harmony as we're like chewing our, it's not always going to be that. But like, what do we have in our control that we can try to manage? So fantastic.
Definitely.
Highly recommend Regulari-T if you're struggling with any sort of bowel issues. The other formula I'd love to dive into is IB Soothe-R. So this is going to be our irritable bowel support. So really for that individual with more of like chronic gut issues, inflammation, they feel like anytime they eat food, they're really struggling with pain, gas, bloating, constipation. It's not like that occasional when I have gluten or beans, it kind of disrupts. It seems to be more of a consistent concern. Yeah. Correct. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
I love this formula. I think it was developed in a very thoughtful way. Let's start with the vitamins that it contains. It contains vitamin D3, which is so important for cell growth, for nerve function, for muscular movement, for modulating inflammation, so many things. But research has shown that it's a vital nutrient for the gut microbiome. And that's part of the reason why it's in this formula. It's critical for promoting the absorption of calcium through the lining of the intestines. And it's helpful for chronic kind of inflammatory sorts of conditions. So vitamin D3, and just a little footnote, vitamin D3 is such an important nutrient. There are receptor sites in almost every cell of the body for vitamin D. And that's an indication that it's working and important for every cell of the body. So if somebody's not getting their vitamin D checked when they get blood work done, they really should. And a lot of people need to have vitamin D because we're wearing sunscreen. We're not getting a lot of vitamin D from the sun. And it's incredibly important for so many things. So it starts out IB Soothe-R, this amazing bowel function formula. And then we have folic acid. Folic acid is amazingly important for genetic material. It actually helps the body produce genetic material, or RNA and DNA. A deficiency of folic acid can be also associated with inflammation, just like with vitamin D3. And folic acid is more common, it seems, in people who have digestive problems. As they've done research, they found folic acid deficiency linked to digestive ailments. So we put some folic acid in that formula. The next ingredient is B12, and B12 is involved with folic acid in red blood cell formation. It's incredibly important for the development and function of the brain and the nervous system. And it's one of those things that if you don't have sufficient B12, and if your gastrointestinal tract is not working well, you may not absorb the B12 that you get effectively. And that's why a lot of companies put B12 in sublinguals or drops, because for people who have issues with their digestive tract, they may not absorb vitamin B12 well enough. But that's the reason why we put it in here, is because it's so healing and beneficial for digestive health.
One thing too, I want to piggyback the last two that you just said. So for folic acid, we're actually getting this from calcium folinate, which I know that there's like different conversations and controversy on folic acid, calcium folinate, methylfolinate. This calcium folinate is a more absorbable, readily available form than traditional folic acid. So if you do have the MTHFR mutation, this is going to be much easier for the body to process. I just wanted to clarify that. And then the B12 we're getting from the methylcyanocobalamin too. So it's going to be that methylated form. But I know that that's conversation I've kind of brought up in the past. So I just wanted to clarify that we're getting it from the calcium folinate and we have the methylcobalamin.
Thanks for adding that. Those are key, since those are so commonly not well absorbed when you don't use those higher processed forms that absorb much better. So the next thing is probiotics, and the probiotic blend consists of two bacteria. It's Bifidobacterium longum and Lactobacillus helveticus. And those two particular strains of bacteria have been found to help relieve inflammation in the intestines. They've been extensively researched, and that's why those are the two strains that are in there. Also, it's interesting, scientists have studied these two strains of bacteria based on gut-brain pathways. And it's led them to call them psychobiotics, because they seem to support mental health as well as helping with the microbiome. So, and I think the more we learn, when I first started looking at beneficial bacteria, and we first started understanding the microbiome maybe 20 or 30 years ago, it was kind of really in its infancy. And at that time, it wasn't even understood that we have more bacterial cells in our body than we have human cells. Now we all know that. Or if you don't, ta-da, that's something that's been well established. And so understanding the connection between the brain and the gut, I know, is something you've covered, Niki, in other discussions, but it is definitely something that's been researched with these two particular strains of bacteria. And I'll just say the names of them one more time, just so in case you missed them the first time. It's Bifidobacteria longum and Lactobacillus helveticus. Those are the two strains that have been called psychobiotics because of their support of mental health as well as digestive health.
And we do have their registered number on the bottle as well. So you can even pull that up and look at this exact strain and get the research behind it. So I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. In the herbal part of the formula, we have one of my favorite Ayurvedic blends, which is called Triphala. And Triphala is a blend of 3 different fruits, which are called Amalaki, Bibataki, and Haritaki in Sanskrit. And they've really become like a cornerstone of how you support digestive health in Ayurvedic medicine. They encourage the growth of beneficial bacteria in the intestines. They inhibit pathogenic and inflammatory bacteria. And they also believe that the active constituents in these 3 fruits can promote longevity. So it's something that is very commonly used, and it makes total sense in a formula here that's really intended to help with microbiome health and intestinal health, because that's how it's been used for thousands of years in India and in areas where they practice Ayurveda.
Robin, I want to interrupt you 1 second because I know you mentioned this earlier in the conversation and I meant to clarify it. You just mentioned constituents. And for our listeners who maybe aren't familiar with that terminology, what do you mean by that? When you say active constituents in an herb or an ingredient, to somebody who maybe has never heard of that, what does that mean?
Vitamin C is ascorbic acid. It's 1 molecule. Triphala is thousands of molecules. And the constituents are what it's made up of. It's made up of all these different component parts that are naturally occurring in the plant. So when I talk about the active constituents of Triphala, and which are, antioxidant and promote longevity, those constituents also have multi-purposes, like we've talked about with herbs, that they're all multi-purpose. And we know now, because of research, that thousands of years of history and traditional use has been vindicated, because we know that it supports microbiome health. We know that it inhibits pathogenic bacteria. We know that it helps promote beneficial bacteria. And there are other fruits and vegetables that do this too. It's not the only thing that does this, but it's such a well-established, long history of use in Triphala, and with the scientific benefit, established, we've got one of the best things that you can use to help promote a healthy gut, especially in the lower intestines and colon.
I think a very common one that if Triphala is new to you, like curcumin in turmeric. Curcumin's going to be that active constituent. So kind of that, if you're in the aisles and you're like, wait, I've seen both, but I don't get it. Is a different product. It's that like active component in the root or herb or leaf itself.
Right. And because we're just in the middle of history here, we don't know everything yet. We think that turmeric is the most important constituent of that. Curcumin is the most important constituent of turmeric, but in 10 years we may
what
find
will time
out
tell us?
And the curcumin may not work as well without other parts of turmeric, because the whole is often better than the sum of the parts. So it's nice to have fruit extracts and herb extracts that are in this formula that give you, active ingredients and all of the ingredients that are naturally found in that herb. So
Absolutely.
The next thing, we talked about fennel before when we were talking about Regulari-T. In this formula, we use caraway, and caraway has similar benefits. You may be familiar with caraway seeds being used like in sauerkraut or braised cabbage and breads and things like that, like rye bread. But it's got a history of supporting digestion as well. And it's really good for bloating and gas and heartburn. So you could even make a tea, take teaspoon of caraway and put it in boiling water and let it, actually it'd be better if you just boiled it for a few minutes and then drank the tea, strained out the seeds or chewed up the seeds and drank the tea from it. And it's very good for, especially for that bloating and gas, like fennel, very much like fennel.
And we do have fennel in this one too, in a smaller dose, but we do have that 50 milligrams, whereas the caraway, we have 175, so much higher potency.
It's kind of a 1-2 whammy.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I love talking about marshmallow root because people look at an herb like marshmallow and think, okay, my experience of marshmallow is not green, not a plant. Marshmallow candy was originally used when they were making marshmallow herb was originally used when they were making marshmallow candy early in the 19th century. And more recently, it's been replaced with gelatin. So gelatin is cheaper and easier to source, evidently. So about 70 years ago, they started using gelatin instead of marshmallow herb or marshmallow root. But the reason why they used it is because it's kind of gummy, mucilaginous, which means it's kind of sticky and mucousy in a good way. And it's been especially helpful for respiratory conditions and also stomach conditions where you've got the lining of your tissues are so sensitive and delicate, and marshmallow is just soothing. It's like putting a poultice, putting like a healing salve on the tissues of your digestive tract when you put marshmallow in your bodies, and it helps soothe the lining of the stomach and the small intestines and the large intestines. So it's got healing properties. I mean, it's almost like aloe in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking about that.
It's cooling and it's healing, but it helps ease inflammation. So that's the benefit of marshmallow. And marshmallow, like I said, is also good for respiratory issues. What's next? Red raspberry. Red raspberry has been used traditionally in North America as well as Europe and Asia for relieving inflammation and spasms and cramps. So you may have used red raspberry tea for menstrual cramps. In this formula, red raspberry is good for the digestive cramps that some people get. And like the turkey rhubarb root, it has tannins in it that help make the tissues it helps tighten the tissues. And one of the things that we haven't talked about, but maybe you've talked about in other conversations, Niki, is leaky gut and why you want your digestive tract tissues tight. It's because there's only one layer of cells that line that digestive tract. And if they get disrupted and there's spaces between the cells, then undigested food materials and pathogenic bacteria can get into the body. It's not isolated in the digestive tract. So tightening the tissues with things like turkey rhubarb and things like red raspberry can be really helpful for toning those tissues so that you don't get that leakiness in the gut, that you keep the gut has integrity.
I love that you mentioned that. And it was interesting when we were chatting about, I don't remember if it was marshmallow, red raspberry. Marshmallow. I was immediately in my brain, I was like, leaky gut, people who are struggling with this or develop kind of the holes in that mucosal lining and develop all these other issues and inflammation. Bacteria can kind of get in and out, and it's not a good situation, but a lot of people are struggling with it. And so I love that you pressed into it, how marshmallow and some of these other ingredients can help kind of support rehealing that mucosal lining, how important it is. I can't remember the name of it. Maybe you did, Robin. There was a Netflix series or movie documentary that just came out maybe a month, maybe 2 ago, all on gut health. And it is fantastic. I can't remember the name. I'll include it in the show notes. And I have the gal's book who created the movie or docuseries, whatever it's called. And she does such a good way of analogy and making it easy to understand. There's kind of like cartoons. And I can immediately, as soon as you said, kind of the cells lining up, I can immediately visualize what she put in the film. And it truly is like all these cells kind of bunched up together. And if there's these junctions or gaps in the cells for whatever reason, it could be a lack of diversity of food. And what's happening is you're not feeding the good bacteria or the cells. And so some start overtaking and start kind of building a wedge in between that lining. And that's when we start creating issues. So the fact that this formulation is going to be supportive to really strengthen that wall, strengthen that mucosal lining is going to be so important.
I think the movie's called Hack Your Health.
Yes, I believe so. And it is great. And her book, I can't remember her name. Maybe it's like starts with a J. Something with a J. I wasn't prepared.
Julia Enders.
Yes, fantastic. Her book's amazing. The movie is incredible. Whether you're like just kind of skirting the surface of understanding health, you don't need to be a scientist. She really explains it in a simplified way. And it's truly fun to watch. So highly recommend, once you finish this episode, go check that out. But okay, agree. So we just covered, have we dove into slippery elm?
We haven't talked about slippery elm, but it's part of that triumvirate, of red raspberry, marshmallow, slippery elm. It also has that mucilage that helps maintain the integrity of the digestive tract walls, but also soothes the intestines. And relieves the inflammation that you may get, which can be caused by constipation or diarrhea or all kinds of things. And it's very comforting to use during if you have constipation or diarrhea. Slippery elm, some people take, the herb itself and make a tea or a gruel kind of out of it. And you can use marshmallow root in this way if you have it ground fine. And make kind of a gruel and just have it as a porridge. And it's very, very soothing, especially for people who have like that kind of diarrhea that's really hard to get relief from. I know there are medications for that, and slippery elm is something that's been used traditionally for that kind of thing. And then we've got fennel, which we've discussed, and
chamomile.
Chamomile, I just think of Peter Rabbit when I think about chamomile. Do you know that story?
I don't think
Peter Rabbit, Beatrix Potter and Peter Rabbit. When Peter Rabbit went to Mr. McGregor's garden and ate all of Mr. McGregor's vegetables and came home with a horrible stomach ache, what did his mother give him? Chamomile tea. She gave him chamomile tea. So chamomiles, the natural ingredients, constituents in chamomile are known for helping soothe and calm, and they also relieve inflammation and gas, and they ease the muscles that surround the digestive tract. So if you're feeling tension, that's very helpful. But we also know chamomile to be a nervous system calming herb. And so people who tend to be high-strung and tense, chamomile tea is such a good remedy for that. Very safe, very effective. And chamomile tea, what could be easier than chamomile tea? You can get chamomile tea in any health food store and many grocery stores these days. And the better chamomile teas, like traditional medicinals, have, all the perfect therapeutic benefits. And it can be used for tummy aches, and it can also be used for stress and nervousness. But we put it in this formula along with the lemon balm to soothe the digestive tract, to ease bloating and gas. And lemon balm is in the mint family, so you can think of it as being kind of, I don't want to say refreshing like mint is, but it's very soothing and calming. And it has to be said that a lot of these herbs have kind of a brain gut kind of effect. And so when you're thinking about lemon balm, I think it's important to also recognize that it's valuable for cognition as well as for the nervous system in general and the digestive tract specifically when we're talking about IB Soothe-R. So
yeah, you look at, all those final ingredients, the chamomile, the lemon balm, we haven't gotten to the benfotiamine and the vinpocetine, but those all have that brain to body connection because what we've explored, not just in this conversation, but in this whole series, is how powerful the nervous system is and how important it is to regulate because, 70% of your serotonin or 80, I think it's 70 or 80 is produced in your gut. And so there is this direct connection that if you struggle with digestive issues, there's a connection to nervous system related issues. So we need to make sure that we're supporting our body with that. One thing too, I love about the chamomile that I love that it does, kind of talking about the nervous system, is it really helps transfer your body from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic. And so that's going from fight or flight to rest and digest. And I would say most of us on a regular basis tend to naturally be in fight or flight unless you're, on top of it with meditation or deep breathing or grounding or removing yourself from stimulation. A lot of times, majority of our days, we're in that sympathetic nervous system. And so if the other nervous system is rest and digest and you're struggling with that, we want to be able to support our body with the ingredients to bring us into that parasympathetic nervous system. So I love that you pulled kind of how powerful supporting the body with these herbal ingredients that touch into nervous system is going to be.
That's right, because herbs are not only good for one thing. And when we talk about nutrients like benfotiamine, and let's just start with benfotiamine. It's a fat-soluble form of vitamin B1, which is also known as thiamine, and it absorbs and penetrates into this. It absorbs and penetrates into the system better than vitamin B1 does, and that's one of the reasons why it's used. And in this formula, we find that it's really effective as an adjunct for that inflammation that people get in their digestive tracts and in their colon. It helps soothe inflammation in the body. And it also protects mood and helps support mood because herbs and nutrients do more than one thing. And then the vinpocetine, I don't know why I'm struggling. I'm looking at benfotiamine and vinpocetine.
Totally, you're combining it, making a baby out of them.
I'm making a baby for sure. So vinpocetine is a manufactured derivative of plant chemicals that are seen in the periwinkle flower, the periwinkle plant, and it is neuroprotective. It has lots of effectiveness in terms of helping. We imagine our nerves like we imagine an electrical system, and the nerves get frayed, like you've seen wires get frayed, if they've overused. So vinpocetine is one of those nutrients that helps with unfraying and soothing the inflammation in the nerves. And it's also been shown to be really supportive for that gut-brain thing. The effect of the gut on the microbiome and the effect of the microbiome on the brain. So it's those nutrients are the benfotiamine and the vinpocetine are both very helpful for, that brain microbiome kind of situation and helping make sure that the nervous system is calmed and regulated and the mood is improved, but also that inflammation that you find in the gut is benefited because both of those nutrients help with that.
I love your analogy of I love analogies. I think it's so, especially when you start getting really sciencey, it's helpful to kind of see things in a visual perspective, but the fraying of the nerves makes so much sense. And vinpocetine, you can find it, I think, in a few of our formulas, but I want to say it's in our, it used to be called Security, our incontinence formula.
The women's Security.
Yes, because sometimes in incontinence, bladder leakage, frequency, urgency, sometimes there's not that right wiring of the brain telling the body, okay, hold in the urine, or it's time to go, or anything like that. So vinpocetine is a great ingredient to help kind of reestablish that wiring. I'm going to steal that analogy moving forward. Awesome. And one of the biggest things I think after going through this with you that I've taken away is that IB Soothe-R is kind of a great formula for everyone, whether you struggle with digestive health or not, because it really is nourishing the mucosal lining, the membranes, the wiring of the nervous system. Like, it's a really good formula to just keep in your system to support its body to work most effectively, especially if you are traveling or you're eating food you're not used to, or you're going through a heavy, stressful season, because who's not? I mean, even if the stress is getting married, having a baby, it's all good stressors, but it's still stressors and takes a toll on your nervous system. So I think IB Soothe-R is a great formula to have in your system, even if you don't struggle with like really intense IBS symptoms. But if you do struggle with those, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah, I really think of the IB Soothe-R as the go-to if somebody has any kind of bowel issues, and then Regulari-T is the add-on if they need it, because IB Soothe-R is so valuable and so healing, and I love the idea of it. Sense. Yeah, and then Regulari-T when needed.
Yep. So the last formula we'll just kind of quickly touch upon, it's not even a formula, Saccharomyces boulardii. So for those of you that aren't familiar, we have our traditional LifeSeasons therapeutics line. So that's kind of our traditional OG blends that are going to support specific conditions. But then we also have our essentials. So these are isolated ingredients that you can add on to kind of a formula or stack. You can take in isolation. It's kind of up to you what you want to do. But we do have Saccharomyces boulardii, which is a great probiotic, kind of known as the traveler's probiotics, really good for diarrhea or anything like that. But I'd love to hear, do you have any insights on Saccharomyces boulardii?
Sure. Saccharomyces boulardii, let me just tell you a little bit about it. It's not a bacteria, it's a yeast. It's a beneficial yeast that's found in the digestive tract of most healthy people. It's not foreign to our digestive tracts. It's endemic. It's indigenous to our digestive tracts. And it was identified by a scientist whose last name was Boulard, which is why we call it Saccharomyces boulardii, in honor of that scientist. And it's been used as a stomach remedy really since the 1920s. It's been used as a stomach remedy. Specifically, it's been found to help when you have those cases of diarrhea, or like the irritability that causes you to have diarrhea sometimes and vacillate to constipation back and forth. And because diarrhea is sometimes caused by pathogenic bacteria, Saccharomyces boulardii is thought to be helpful in affecting those infections, in benefiting those infections, including traveler's diarrhea. So this is that's like the go-to formula. Saccharomyces boulardii is the go-to product to take you when you're traveling, because some people even take it like a week before they leave for a trip, just to get their system kind of fortified for their traveling, so that in case they do drink some water or eat something that irritates their system, they won't have such a horrible experience of it. I know there have been some studies using Saccharomyces boulardii to prevent really serious bacterial infections like Clostridium. Clostridium difficile and H. pylori, that causes stomach and duodenal ulcers. Those kinds of things have been treated with using Saccharomyces boulardii, and to real benefit, because it stabilizes the gut flora and helps eliminate, helps reduce the quantity of the pathogenic bacteria, because, we always have good guys and bad guys in there, and hopefully, a plethora of all the good beneficial bacteria, the millions and millions and millions of them, and then, small amounts of normal, transient, pathogenic bacteria that just gets into our system and leaves without doing any harm. So Saccharomyces boulardii is one of those beneficial microorganisms that can help. And because it's helping with preventing those kinds of, serious illnesses, it also seems to help with eliminating pain and inflammation and some of those things that can come along with that kind of irritation and infection in the digestive tract. And when you're using it, obviously use the medications that your doctors recommend if you're using any medications and if you've got a condition that your doctor's treating. But this is something that can be used as an adjunct and can be really helpful for that pain, inflammation, that stabilizing of the microbiome, and the prevention of the pathogenic guys that get in there sometimes and really wreak havoc.
Fantastic. I love that. Well, whatever your digestive issue, discomfort, concern is, we've got a formula for you. And we didn't even go over all the stuff. We have digestivity, we have purity, our liver formula, which is so important. And we touched a little bit about the benefits of bile and what that does in the body, but our liver formula is incredible support for that as well. Robin, this was incredible to not only go through the products, but to get that herbal expertise that you have that I absolutely don't. I think it's fascinating to kind of learn the history and the cultivation behind some of these ingredients and touch into the Ayurvedic approaches and really kind of pull back the maybe, I don't know the word I'm looking for, of, are these effective? Are these powerful? And that's a great thing with herbs is they're safe. They're effective. The stuff works. And if you're not sure, try it out for yourself and see how it works. I have the ability to kind of see all the reviews on LifeSeasons that are posted, and the reviews of IB Soothe-R, not only is they're just a vast amount, the power behind the testimonies of how this has transformed their health, but their life. Some people are like, this is truly life-saving, is so cool to hear. Not just that, we were able to create a formula that supports them, but again, the power and the beauty behind natural medicine that, our world can grow these incredible ingredients that can nourish our bodies, that can support our health. And so it's just cool to be able to explore these. And I just appreciate your time and your insights and your wisdom through all this, Robin.
Back at you, Niki. It's been really fun to watch all of these podcasts. I really appreciate everything that I've learned.
Well, now you're going to be a new star in the show, and I know I'm going to bug you to have you back on, and we'll kind of explore herbal perspective and some of our other formulas.
Sounds great.
Awesome. All right. Well, take care, Robin.
You too. Thanks so much. Bye.